Alright guys, Josh Finn here with J&H Aerospace. This is your next installment in the 2024 Science Olympiad flight reviews. This one is Guru Engineering Tech. Now, we did not release a review of the Guru plane last year. There were some issues that arose. I did record the video, did intend to release it, but we ran into some problems. All I'm going to say is I could not figure out how to get the airplane to fly stock, and by the time a friend of mine figured out what was necessary to do, I had made a series of modifications to the airplane, and all I'm going to say is those modifications showed up on the Guru Engineering Tech website after I had started teaching a couple of local students to use those modifications to get their airplanes to at least not spiral into the ground. And again, like I said, it was possible to get them to fly stock, but I had to have somebody else do research to figure that out because I couldn't. Now, I don't claim to be the oracles of God on trimming airplanes, but it was something that I couldn't get it to fly in the stock form. I have participated in the flying of this year's airplanes a little bit, and they do fly stock, so that's good. That's what we want. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I've opened the box already, so you don't get a clean unboxing on this one. But I did that because the instructions, you have to pay for the kit to get access to the instructions. There's an access code, and so I accessed the instructions and reviewed them so I would know what to do. I already know two issues with the instructions, and bear in mind these are not, Laser Cut had technically an error in their instructions too about the colored wing panel. This one says color a wingtip. Again, that is no longer a rule for this year. The other thing is the Guru instructions reference the need for two boxes, one for each airplane that you enter. That is no longer the case. It's now one box. So those are the two errors I've found so far. Those are simply things going, I guess, technically too conservative. So there's that aspect to consider. I don't know what the box requirements are for this airplane, if it maxes them out or what have you. And I should mention, this is the Division C airplane. I typically, if a company offers a Division B and a Division C, I pick the one that is the most restrictive. So in this case, that this year's rules, that would be Division C. And so that way I get the harder to fly airplane, but they're not that hard to fly. So anyway, with that, we'll look at what's inside the box. Alright, so here is the type of box that the kit arrives in. The shipping box is the packaging, just like what Freedom Flight does. And so as per the norm, the kits are packed in tissue paper as the packing material. There is a sheet here, which I'll show you this side, that has all the goodies as far as what's in it. The other side, hang on a second, I'll cover it over. You have kind of your details of everything, and I'm covering up an access code. Hardware pack. So these are propellers. I've already looked in this. These propellers are different from the ones last year. They look to be good. They are slightly different, I think, than the ones we've got. The ones last year looked the same, but were actually different from the ones, the Icara props that I get. And bear in mind, these are Icara propellers. The ones last year were as well, but they were a different design. This is the rubber that's supplied with the kit. I assume that is 3/32 rubber. We'll mic it at some point. And we've got covering and a little bit of motor hardware and ballast in here. And then this is the way the balsa parts are always packaged. At this point, we'll slide the kit box out of the way. So in here, you get these guys, which if this is, well, I know for sure, this is the way the kits always are, that there's, you get roughly 1/4 inch balsa for the motor sticks, and that's always been that's the size Guru normally uses, and it works fine in my experience. I believe that's all the parts, yeah. So here you've got the spar set. And so these are your stab spars, wing spars, stab spars, and then these are your stab ribs and your wing ribs. So we'll get all that going on. Got our wing tips, or sorry, these are our stab tips. These are the wing tips, and this is my biggest complaint right here is the grain runs the wrong direction on these. This is something we've been dealing with a number of years with these kits, and it makes them fragile, unnecessarily so. This is at least A grain wood, so it's it'll bend a little bit before it breaks, so you at least have that. But used to be these would be C grain, and if you just kind of flicked it just very gently wrong or bumped it against something, they'd break. So last year's used foam, which was a little on the heavy side and kind of draggy, but at least they didn't break easily. I actually kind of liked them making that change. I'm going to be blunt. This saves, like, having it this way saves about 25 cents per kit. So Guru, please do this right next time. It just doesn't cost that much more. I should know kit economics. I play the games pretty tight. So that's all the parts in the kit. All right, let's build a Guru wing. So we're going to pop out a pair of wing spars here. Now, one nice thing I see here is on this one there are extra spars supplied. So you've actually got enough parts here in terms of ribs and whatnot to build 3 airplanes, that's pretty awesome. The one issue I have is, and I understand this is one of those things, is like, this is innovative and cool until it's not. The ribs are designed to fully interlock, so it's basically a 2-dimensional interlock with the spars. And so we'll pop a rib loose here and I'll explain this. This is intended so that there's a notch in the rib and a notch in the spar so that it locks in like that. And that's really cool, except for the problem that this is, a load-bearing part on a heavy 8-gram airplane, and so that creates a stress riser right there, and right there, and right there. And it makes the wings fragile. The kits compensate for that somewhat by using these really tall wing spars. That's called drag, and that reduces the performance of the airplane. I know it's cool and all, but a far, far better approach to this would just be the traditional interlocks that you do where you lay the spar horizontal and lock it in like that. And again, I get it. It's a really cool way to do things. It's also unnecessarily fragile and draggy. So that's my take on that. Okay, so I went ahead, I separated all my ribs out, and I went ahead and also popped out the bits for the horizontal tail, which I forgot to separate the tail spars. One important thing to point out is that if you take a stab rib and a wing rib, they nest perfectly like this. The issue with this is that means that the wing and the stab are the exact same camber, and that tends to be unwise. When you fly free flight gas, you learn that at a whole other unforgiving level. But in indoor models, I have found that it is detrimental to the flight characteristics of the airplane. So if it ever gets the nose really down from a really hard hit, it's probably dorking in. So I'm gonna show putting in a pair of spars here. Now I believe the instructions, unfortunately I've got too many things going through my head, but I believe the instructions show to put all the ribs in on one spar before dropping them on the other. And that's perfectly fine. This is the method I'm comfortable with, and so that's what I'm doing. I have no objections to whatever order you select to do these parts. But anyway, this is how it all goes together. It does go together very quickly. The wood quality is excellent. It's the density and whatnot that you would want. Laser cutting quality is excellent, so no complaints on any of that. I've always felt the materials included in these kits, at least, were superb. Just some of the decisions on how to use those materials are more what I'm bothered by it. Okay, so we have the wing and the tail here. Now I have actually already sprayed these with 3M77, so we're ready to start the covering process on these. They go together rather quickly. My only quirk here is I don't know if it shows up on camera, but these two ribs, these intermediate ribs are closer to the tips than to the center. Probably doesn't really impact flyability, but just a little different. Normally I would think you would do that the other way around, but you know, neither here nor there. Like I said, it goes together easy. It's still more fragile than I'd like because of those stress risers at the ribs, but you know, it seems to work pretty well here. Now I dinged laser cut over this, so I'm doubly going to ding this on a more complex kit that I do consider to be a little harder to fly myself. You know, the laser cut kit, you have a small prop, you can just kind of power through it. This is an airplane that ostensibly is designed to be fairly high performance, and there's no covering frame supplied. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to, there we go. I was going to say we're going to initiate a brief search for my lost razor blade. Don't cut on your wife's table like that. I only did it because she has lulled me into the bad habit because I caught her doing it the other day. Oh, there are actually 2 veggie bags included. That I did not see coming. They are non-scented, if you were wondering. Because I think these are technically trash bags. I know mine are, but they're the same material as veggie bags. Anyway, at this point, your job is to figure out how to get this sucker open. There we go. It is very, very light material. Now, this stuff is different from the HDPE that I'm normally using on our kits. I actually got some of this and moved away from it because I found out that after you put it on, it has a tendency to kind of like shrink a little bit. And I don't know what causes that, but it is super, super annoying. Alright, we're going to snip through this. You've got enough covering in here to cover at least 6 airplanes. The instructions do not say to wad this up, and normally I would simply do what the kit says to do. However, with the shape of this wing, I'm going to have a hard time covering this per the instructions. And the reason I say that is, like I said, no covering frame is supplied, and this is a highly cambered wing and tail, so it's going to be awkward. All right, so the instructions say to put the wing down. I'm going to mess this up so bad. So you put down one spar, and then you're supposed to rock this back. Oh, that's driving me crazy. Why am I doing this? This is not how you do this. You need a covering frame. Yeah, now I'm kind of stuck. It's so much camber, you can't rock it back. It's kind of stuck down, all that jazz. Again, this is an instance of just following the instructions. I probably shouldn't be. This reminds me of being in my college dorm covering wings exactly the same way except with super ultra film, and questioning my life choices when I looked at it and was like, why does my covering look terrible? Because you're supposed to use a covering frame. And my response was, but then there's all that's around the edges that you waste. Because I was a poor college student. I was not a poor college student in one regard. I only ate ramen when I was too lazy to make something else. It wasn't an issue of being poor. Wasn't a rich college student, though. Not by any means. Anyway, there's your wing. In theory, you can do the same thing with the stab. After you de-wrinkle. The instructions most definitely do not mention that trick, but you'll get the reference to another video of mine. That was the first tutorial video I ever made, and it was awful. If you watched that and thought, how did he do that? The answer is because I've done it thousands of times. There you go, right there. Okay, so the next step is to build the wing mount. So we're going to clip out the wing mount components here. Come on, there we go. And so you need this for each plane. So the instructions give you this piece of square plastic tubing, and ideally you kind of clean up the ends on that. They say to cut it into 4 equal pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half. You need a sharp razor blade to cut through this stuff. I believe it's ABS tubing. I was actually pricing some for other applications the other day. It's definitely hard to cut. So you need 2 of these beasts per airplane. And that's the kind of problem you run into there. All right, so the instructions, and again, I am going specifically by the instructions here. They say to glue these to each end. Based on what I saw at the invitational I attended, I think most students are able to make this part work pretty well. So I can't complain too much. I'm going off camera. Maybe I should. Okay, my apologies for some of the previous footage there, which you had to endure. Didn't realize my camera had rotated down quite that far. So I'm gluing these square tubes on the ends like this. As I was saying, I've saw a number of students that were flying the Division B of this airplane, and they flew fine. So these little upper tabs go here. Next, the square tubing, you could actually overlap it out to the end. Actually, I think that's the way it's supposed to go. I have to look at the instructions again, but I don't want to type the password in again. That's what I hate about instructions that are behind a paywall, is you have to type in that password every time, even if it's open on your phone. It resets. Now, this is not much mounting area here as far as grip area for your rubber bands, and that tends to cause a problem with these planes. And I've complained about this year after year, but it continues to be a thing that these are just, they're not large enough, and so the plane is floppy. If I could have these be an inch tall, I would. Obviously that's too tall, and it becomes unwieldy and heavy, but my point remains. So with that, I now do get to type in that password again, because I got to go review the exact instructions for this. Okay, so having reviewed the instructions, these are your wing posts. So they go in, and the tabs that stick up from them, these do provide a nice friction fit in here. That's handy. These are well sized to the tubes. That takes some time to tune that in. You can see the little tabs at the top. Those are supposed to face in according to the instructions. Mine are not going in as much as I would like them to. I don't know which side of this rib you're supposed to go on. I didn't specifically see that. Maybe it was mentioned, maybe not. Anyway, I'm having to pull these apart to get them to really match in. I assume that's how it goes. I feel like they're supposed to be 90 degrees to that. I'm going to do them 90 degrees to that, because that'll at least center it up. No, because then it won't be mounted on the spar. Dang it. I don't know. I looked in the instructions, and maybe it's mentioned in there, but I couldn't find it. And it's bugging the crap out of me, because I really do not actually understand how these are supposed to go on. The best part is you're supposed to pull these apart while not twisting the wing cradle. If y'all figure out how to do that, let me know. I'm sure there's some instruction on one of my kits that's equally obtuse, but dang, that one's driving me nuts. I think it's about right. My wing went on without any, that's not true. It went on and twisted a little. So we gotta have some left wing wash in. I think it's about right. I'm gonna have to bend on the wing a little bit. That's all there is to it. The wing will require bending on to be done. So let's see if I can get that straight now. All right. Don't know if you can even see it. There's the most minute amount of wash in right here. That's what you need. That's probably not mentioned in the instructions, but you need it. All right, so there it is. All right, so next they tell you to install wing tips and tail tips. You're given a lot of extras here. So there's enough to build 3 wings, which is pretty awesome. I'd settle for 2 wings with the grain going the correct direction on the tips. And if you're wondering, yes, that really does bug me that much. Mainly because I've had to repair so many of them over the years. All right, so we're going to put just a thin bead of glue on the rib. And the ribs are not full cord. So you're supposed to center them up kind of like this. Nope. Let's say that. I'm not going to get into all the aerodynamic reasons, but not having those full cord is inefficient. And it's just not the greatest way to do things. All right, I'm going to put the rest of them on. Stab tips go on same way. Same deal, they're not full span. Or full cord, I should say. They're partial. Okay, so the wing and stab, like so. All the tips are on. The lack of full cord, that just kind of messes with my OCD, but otherwise, gone together okay. Feels like it's a good competitive weight. Still would like the wing mount to be taller, but that's neither here nor there. So next we move on to the fuselage. For the first step, you're supposed to cut an angled piece off on the front. And then they supply you with some carbon here. And what you're supposed to do is glue down the carbon. Personally, I don't think it's necessary, but I'm going to build it to the instructions this time. I don't have a bunch of wax paper handy to do it per the instructions, which say to do that. So I'm using a piece of plastic. Now we can get into the logic some other day, but the bottom line is if you're going to put carbon across the top, you should put it across the bottom too. And that's part of my reason why I don't believe it's necessary on this airplane, is the fact that it works. Putting it on only one side means it's probably not carrying as much load as you would think. And this is a task that is messy for students to deal with, which is my big objection to it. But it's the in-style thing to do because Freedom Flight does it too. All right, so that's been applied to the motor stick. The next order of business is to install your nose bearing. And so you pop out one of those rectangles and then go looking for the hardware. Okay, so you glue the wooden gizmo into your nose bearing. And that helps it hold its shape. They say to give this a couple of degrees of left thrust when you glue it in. And I'm about to give it right thrust. Oopsies. Like that. You can see it's angled a little bit. Now, my kit was missing the spool of thread. Not too worried about that. Stuff gets forgotten. You contact the proprietor, say, hey, it was missing. They send you a new one, what have you. Sorry, that's a little bit out of frame. Where I need to be is over here. And if you're wondering, yes, I did just wrap mine with Kevlar. Not because it needs it, because that was the closest thing to me. And so there you go. Okay, so the next thing is you're supposed to make a rear hook out of the straight pins that are supplied. And this is kind of standard fare. The Freedom Flight kits are set up this way too. Personally, I hate making rear hooks out of straight pins because you poke yourself. Then you're supposed to end up with kind of this deal where the pointy end is there. They tell you to measure in a specific distance from the end. But it's about an inch in roughly, usually. I guess that's to do with the rubber motor, the expected rubber motor length or something like that. So there we are. And then wrap it with some Kevlar, because mine was missing the thread, and that's okay. So there you go. So the next task is to attach the tail boom mount tube. So you're supplied this round tubing that is snipped with scissors, and they say to cut it with scissors. Don't cut it with scissors, because as per the instructions, that crushes the tubing. It's mentioned in there, and then it makes it that much harder to get everything set up right. Now, once you've done that, you glue it to the side of the fuselage. They don't say which side, so I'm going to glue it to the right side the way the instructions showed it, without any knowledge of whether that's actually correct. And they say to line it up parallel to the fuselage, so I'm doing that. I'm not putting any incidents in, even though every part of my brain is screaming put incidents in. Now this tail boom will not fit in here. And the instructions mention that. So what you have to do is file away at this guy to get a semi-round cross section. And what ought to be mentioned in there is to use sandpaper, which is what I'm about to use. Now, you want more than just that little bit to go in there, up to there. You want actually some good grip area, because if you don't, your tail boom is going to move all over the place, and then the incidence is going to kind of self-adjust in flight. So that right there is good. Be careful in doing all of this, because you can break this. This is made from pretty light wood, and it's extra fun if it breaks off down inside the tube. So bear that in mind. Now this is square, so it doesn't matter what's top or bottom. And then, so at this point, we can just attach it onto the tail boom, attach the horizontal tail onto the tail boom. I won't say anything about rudder offsets, so we're not going to give it any. There you go. The next thing to do is to mount the wing. And I should mention once again, we're not coloring the wingtip because there's no colored wingtip bonus, and that is time that we don't need to spend. And these are heavy duty rubber bands that they supply to hold the wing on. Okay, first of all, as I was putting things away, I'm an idiot. There's the thread. That's all I'm going to say about that. Oops. Okay, so we got a little bit of left stab tilt here. Let's see how this glides. Well, can't ask for a lot better than that. Alright, so I cranked in some turns. The instructions go into this huge thing about using the palm of your hand to stop the propeller. That's nonsense. All you have to do is make sure the propeller has spooled up before you launch the plane. Like this. Oh my, that actually flies real nice. Alright, added a little power, so hopefully it'll show a little bit of a climb. And other than my bad launch there, it looked like it was going. Alright, added in a little bit of incidence. And yeah, that's going. Funk. Alright folks, so we're out here with the Guru Propeller Plane 2024. And so we're going to wind it up and fly it. I've not made any adjustments since what we did in the living room, and it looked pretty encouraging there. CG again is at the wing trailing edge with a motor loaded in. So we're going to wind her up here. This is kind of a rednecked setup, if you will, but it works. That thing I just hooked the other end to is not a torque meter. No, 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 no. That's a wire on my fence. Not counting turns or anything, we're just winding it up to fly it. So this is probably about 600 turns or so. And so we're loading this on. Now the kit uses rubber O-rings. These are my plastic O-rings, which I prefer, and I find they work pretty well. And they work well even on Ikara props where you have the issues of the prop shaft on the stock ones coming off. So There we are, loaded up, ready to go. Alright, first outdoor flight of the propeller plane. Climbing away alright. Man, that looks nice. It's getting some altitude. I mean, the air's not smooth out here either. It's just going on away. You can see it's very turbulent out here. So, it's not half bad. This thing looks like a little mini stick in flight. It's kind of cool. I mean, well, I should say an overgrown mini stick is more to the point. And smacks the fence. One of the consequences of having to run fairly thick rubber is you do run out of turns. So that is something to bear in mind. That's not a whole lot left from a fairly low climb. But, man, it really does look good in the air. I'm impressed. Alright, that's a lot more power. Let's see what we get now. I mean, you can tell it's loaded down more. Man, the conditions are bizarre out here. I mean, it doesn't feel anywhere as windy as the amount of thrashing around accounts for. We do have a severe weather front moving in here, so that is part of the issue. Poor thing's trying to climb out. I'd love to know what this thing's capable of in, in calm conditions. It actually seems like it should be a fairly strong performer. And it looks gorgeous against those clouds, though. Look at that. I know he got out of the crappy air at least for a minute. It's about 15, 20 feet up in a minute. It's not bad. Especially if you're getting thrashed around like this. It's only on a 1.5 gram rubber motor, per the Ciali specs. I mean, their plane last year for Div C was larger than this per the rules, and could not fly nearly this long on a loop of 3/32. So, I'm impressed. Well, clear the fence, clear the fence, clear the fence. Come on, you got it, you got it, you got it, you got it, you got it. Oh, not quite. About 1:55. Alright, I took out a little bit of stab tilt this time to open up the turn some. I do believe that made a difference. We'll see. Maybe not. Thought it was getting higher, but I don't know. Don't like where it's headed at all. Is there trees there? Oh, it's gotten good altitude this time. That's nice. Now if it'll just stay away from the trees. It's looking good so far. I think the drift is largely stopped. Came up on a minute about 35 to 40 feet up. I'll say 35 at most. Maybe only 30. I don't know. I'm not good at estimating altitude on these. Sometimes I think I am, but I'm not. Definitely coming down quicker now. But much quicker. I think we've kind of maxed this thing out now. I don't think it's got anything more to give. I mean, this is perfect air, no turbulence, dead calm, unlimited ceiling. So, the answer is just over 2 minutes then. Nice. All right. And that's how many turns we have left. So yeah, we're pretty well maxed out here. I mean, that's what it's going to give you, with everything to the limit. So climb altitude potential looks to be about 35 to 40 feet, and you land with very few turns remaining. It's kind of cool out here, about 60 to 65 degrees. So in theory, you'd get a little more climb potential in warmer weather, and be able to use up those last few turns. But yeah, that's what it's capable of, which is quite impressive, really. Okay, now you can go. Well, if you throw it that hard, it nearly crashes its poor self.
Big white circles.
I feel like I backed off too much. Yeah, I backed off too much. It is just rock steady.
Still a nice little low ceiling glide or cruise.
Yeah. I got it to do over 2 minutes outside from surprisingly low altitude, all things considered. I mean, the air's not real smooth in here.
You noticed that?
I blame my children.
Yeah, you can't be the two air stirrers moving around. Must be the stealth air conditioning. That,
Definitely, definitely.
Isn't warming up.
That way. There you go.
Perfect.
Very nice launch. Now let's see what it finds to hit this time.
That's a good circle.
Yeah, it's gonna find something stupid to hit though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Such a nice flying airplane though. Oh, sir, did I get the back off exactly right?
I think you did. For this area?
Dang.
Yeah. I mean, you could go a little bit less.
I had 6 more inches, I'll have you know. Boy, it is bumpy over there.
They've been working real hard to stir it.
That was up high though. The problem is the walls are warm and the roof is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad. I could do 2 minutes with it in here if it weren't like that. Paul, please let it go all the way to the ground. Please.
Oh, don't do it.
Please.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Instead, run around and leave weight turbulence to knock it out of the sky. Oh, wow. That was an impressive recovery from that.
There we go.
All right. Guru Propeller Plane 2024. Color me impressed. It flies. This flies really good. I like how it flies. I had fun flying this airplane. And that's the important rule, right? Have fun. So I think for a typical gymnasium, you're going to see about 90 seconds, maybe up to 2 minutes with this. With some really careful research, you'll get up to 2 minutes, which is excellent. So where that puts us in the stack up, laser cut. The laser cut kit this year, which is a specifically beginner-oriented airplane. You're looking at about a minute 20 performance in a typical gymnasium. And this airplane, I'd say you're typically going to be seeing about a minute 40 to a minute 50. Your carbon airplanes like the Stinger or the Freedom Flight plane, 2.5 to 3 minutes typically is what you're going to see. And then, of course, the retro RC airplane, I expect to see right around the performance of this one, right in that 150 range, I think. We'll see how that works out. It is a biplane, so I don't know how that's going to go. Things you need to know about this airplane. It's because it's fragile and it needs as much power as you can give it. Yet it's unforgiving of mistakes, so you have to be careful. Don't break it as you're building it. Take your time, get a good covering job. Ideally, use a covering frame, and that will make the airplane fly better. I think if I'd use a covering frame, this airplane would probably fly better, because you can see, I don't know if that shows up, my covering is surprisingly loose here, and I can't get that remedied. And I can see it ballooning in flight. I know that's taking 5 to 10 seconds off the flight times, I think. One thing that I will mention that's very important is, if you see how my wing is attached, the center line of the wing, you can see the rib here and the spar over here. So the wing is offset that much from the wing post, and then the wing post is offset that much from the motor stick, same side. So this wing ends up longer than this one, and it's very important that you do that. That's why the airplane is able to lean over without torquing in too much. And so if you don't have that offset, I think this airplane is going to be a lot harder to fly. A little bit of stab tilt, no rudder offset from what I can tell. It doesn't seem to want rudder offset. In fact, I feel like I may have, no, they're dead neutral. They're dead neutral. So it does not need rudder offset to turn. The 3 degrees of left thrust is what you want, and maybe a little stab tilt to tune your circle. That's very important. My CG, if you look, is slightly, I don't know if that shows up. Yeah, okay, so you can see it's a little bit nose high. So my CG is slightly behind my wing, about 1/16. So 1/16 inch. So that's very important. That data is not supplied in the kit, so you need to know that. The other thing is, for torque control, we've got the wing up as high as possible. So this wing post is flush with the bottom, and this one, that looks like about 1/8 of an inch of incidence. So I think you could probably go up as high as 3/16. 1/8 I would want better, though, because that's less incidence, less drag, better power trim for cruise. So those are the settings I think that you need to make it fly well. So I have to say, if you've got good mentoring and good information you've got access to, I have to give a thumbs up to the Guru Propeller Plane 2024. We'll see you on the next one. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.